It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
My name is Kendra. I am the founder of the Key Resource, and I basically started the Key Resource to be what I needed when I started investing in real estate years ago. So way back in 2015, when I bought my first rental property, I had no idea what I was doing, like at all. And I just was figuring it out, making mistakes. And I decided, you know what? Like all the mistakes I made is there for a reason. And there's no reason anyone else that comes across me or my platform should make those same mistakes. And so I'm on a mission to inspire, empower, and educate people to do better than I did. I am a wife. Sorry, my headphones keep falling off. I am, sorry guys, I'm a wife, a mom, a landlord. I am an Aggie. So I went to North Carolina A&T State University. Any Aggies on here, Aggie Pride, any HBCU grads on here. I mean, everybody, I'm glad you're on here, but if you went to a HBCU, give me like a thumbs up or something. Let's see what we got in the chat. Where are you guys from? So Khadijah's in the DMV, two duplexes in DC. So Khadijah, you're like investing right in my neck of the woods because that's where my rental properties are. In DC and Baltimore, and I live in San Antonio, Texas. We actually moved to San Antonio like right before the pandemic because we had a baby and I wanted to be closer to family and stuff. So at any point during the presentation, if you guys can't hear me, let me know. I'm like, my headphones are not fitting right. So let me keep adjust. There we go. I think that's it. And I see like, is there a lag in you guys' video or is it just mine?
It's slight, but I feel like I may have had similar issues with Canva. Maybe it's a Canva thing, but it is very slight with the cursor.
No, I'm talking about it, like in my image. Is there
Oh,
a
your
lag
image? No, I think you're good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You don't see a lag. Okay, thank you, Khadijah. All right, so that's a little bit about me. Like I said, I am a buy and hold investor. Like I have never flipped a property. I've never wholesaled a property. Like I've only done buy and hold, not because there's anything wrong with any of those other strategies. I just haven't had the right opportunity come my way. So when it comes to buy and hold investing, I've done like everything: Section 8, regular tenants, like Airbnb, and you name it. Like we've tried every strategy. Travel nurse rentals is one of my favorites. So let's hop right into it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. So basically, like I said, you guys, travel nurses travel every 3 months. It's not a pandemic thing. I've been doing this since 2018. They're looking for fully furnished places to stay at each duty station they go to. And so I'm going to walk you guys through my entire process, the pros and cons, like everything you need to know to use this as a strategy. Okay, so let's talk about this really quick because I said that travel nurses are short-term rentals. So what's the difference between a short-term rental and a long-term rental? Like here are some pros and cons. So with a long-term rental, that's going to be something that's a 12-month lease or longer. With long-term renters, that's like your typical renter. It could be Section 8, it could be a regular renter. They're going to sign a lease for a year or more. And with long-term, there's less turnover, right? That person's going to stay at least a year. They usually stay longer than that. You don't have to do a lot of turnovers and cleanings and all that kind of stuff. But with long-term, you typically have a lower rental income compared to short-term rentals. That short-term rental money, like that Airbnb money and stuff like that, there's nothing like it, right? If you've ever rented on Airbnb or if you've heard about it, there's a lot of money in it. But with short-term rentals, which usually short-term is defined as 3-month stays or less, you're going to have more frequent turnover. Think about Airbnb. You could have a guest come every 2 days, every 3 days, right? With travel nurse rentals, you have a different guest coming every 3 months, right? So you have more frequent turnover, but you're going to typically get higher rental income compared to long-term rentals. Like when you think about short-term rentals, you could easily get up to double what the long-term rental value is in some places, depending on like what kind of space you have. And so there's just a lot of potential to earn more, but it could be more work. So this is the reason why I love travel nurse rentals as a short-term rental strategy, because when you think about travel nurse rentals versus your typical short-term rental like Airbnb or VRBO or whatever vacation rental you have, with travel nurses, because they stay for 3 months at a time, you're only going to have like 4 tenants a year, if you think about it, right? Whereas with Airbnb, VRBO, whatever other vacation rental site, you could have a new tenant coming in and out every 3 days. Now, again, I don't knock Airbnb. I love it. The money is great. It's good depending on the location. We did Airbnb hosting for years. But if you have more than one rental property, I highly suggest diversifying if you can, or if you only have one right now, not even only, because I'm not diminishing it. Like if you have one right now, definitely make sure you're going with whatever's the best use for whatever area you're in. But when you're thinking of travel nurse rentals versus your typical vacation rental, I love travel nurse rentals because you can get that short-term rental money without the short-term rental turnover. Now, you're not going to get as much as you would with like an Airbnb or a VRBO, but you're going to get way more with travel nurse rentals than you would with a long-term rental, because you're renting it furnished and you're supplying all the utilities. So a travel nurse is looking for furnishings, they're looking for utilities to be included, Wi-Fi and things like that, right? Same as you would furnish and supply an Airbnb is what you're going to supply for a travel nurse. The linens on the bed, the towels, like things like that. So any questions so far about travel nurse rentals versus Airbnb, VRBO? Both short-term rentals. One is kind of like midterm, because it's like 3 months, right? That's a long time, but it's not the long-term commitment. One thing I want to add to before I go to the next thing is I love short-term rentals, especially for people who are like renting, like say you're renting out a room in your house, or say you're renting out the basement of your home, or an accessory dwelling unit, or like some space that's like really close to your primary residence. Let's say you're renting out some space like that. Short-term rentals offer so much more flexibility, because like, let's say for instance, you're renting out a room in your house and you sign a 1-year lease with somebody and you end up really not liking them, you're stuck for that whole year unless they decide to break their lease. But with a short-term rental, it's like, okay, I don't like this person, they get on my, they're too loud, but they're only going to be here a couple months, or they're only going to be here, for a couple days if it's Airbnb. So that's one thing I like to think about, just that flexibility with these types of rentals. So
are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate?
Yeah.
Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance?
You know who it is?
The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the #1 place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
Let's talk about this really quick, because when I talk about furnishing a short-term rental, people start to see all these dollar signs, right? It's like, how am I going to get this rental property and then furnish it? That seems really expensive, but it doesn't have to be. So I wanted to talk about like different ways to furnish your travel nurse rental or whatever short-term rental you decide to do on a budget. You can take a screenshot of this. I don't know if you guys get access to the replay or not, but these are some different places that I like to use to spend next to nothing furnishing rentals. BAC Auctions, it's like a site that they use to, if you ever gone into a model home in those new development communities, once the model home sells, they auction that furniture off. And I've gotten some really, really, really good stuff for a really great price. BACauctions.com, and they're all over the country. Free Cycle is a place where you can like literally donate stuff and get free stuff. Craigslist has a free section that I am notorious for getting amazing finds on. Facebook Marketplace, Buy Nothing Facebook groups. It's just like Free Cycle, where people literally are like, hey, I have a free desk. It's like a way of recycling through Facebook. Goodwill, Salvation Army. Now the last two, Furnish and Live Feather, these are two new really cool concepts where it's like really modern, beautiful furniture, but you can rent it. And I think this is a great avenue for short-term rental hosts to try, because if the numbers work out by renting furniture instead of buying it up front, you could basically pass on that cost to your tenants. If it's, I don't even know, like say you rent 3 really nice pieces and it's like $45 a month. I'm making up a price because I literally have no idea. I haven't used it myself. It probably will cost more over time, but if you factor it in as just one of your expenses, it might make sense. So here are some different ways to kind of get over that hurdle of furnishing it if you decide to try this out. Okay, where to find travel nurse tenants? This is one of the biggest questions. People are like, well, how would I even find these people? And I've put some sites here that you can use, and I'll show you which ones I use and my different opinions on these. The thing is, one thing I would do is shy away from just posting on like traditional sites like apartments.com or Zillow or whatever, regular rental sites where just anyone's going to see your rental. If you're specifically trying to get travel nurses, you want to make sure you're posting where they're at, where they're actually looking. So the first one here is Furnished Finder, furnishedfinder.com. That's the one that I personally use. I've also used the next one, which is Transplant Housing. Transplant Housing is good. The platform just isn't as developed as Furnished Finder. And I'm going to show you guys, I'm literally going to show you my Furnished Finder account and like what it looks like and like what to expect. Furnished Finder, Transplant Housing, Facebook. Now, there are Facebook groups for travel nurses that you can post in. There's pros and cons to doing it this way. It's free because as a landlord, you can post your listing in these Facebook groups, but it's really harder to get traction because it's so busy in the group. With Furnished Finder and Transplant Housing, there is a fee, a yearly fee, to be able to post in it, list your listing in there. So Furnished Finder, Transplant Housing, Facebook groups, Craigslist, of course, you can always advertise there. Some people actually advertise to travel nurses on like Airbnb and VRBO. I don't really like this strategy because I think it can just get really confusing, but this is why some people do it. So, well, actually, let me explain something else first. So the reason I think this can get really tricky is if you put it out there on Airbnb and someone who's not a travel nurse sees it, then they might book your space for a lesser amount of time and mess up the whole strategy you have. Like if you put it out there and someone books for 3 days, then you risk losing the opportunity for someone to book it for 3 months if that was in their time window. And so if you put it on Airbnb, you're going to have to set all kinds of like date restrictions and things like that to make it work. The reason some people prefer using Airbnb is because of the way that Airbnb facilitates the payments, right? You pay the tenant pays Airbnb, Airbnb essentially pays you. Airbnb has an amazing like claims process and insurance policy. So if something happens, you're covered and things like that. And so that's why people sometimes like to use Airbnb. I don't, because I think it could if you're focusing on travel nurses by putting it on a platform where everyone can see it, you're going to attract people that are outside of your target market. The last one is housing agencies. This one is probably the best, but it's the hardest to get in. There are housing agencies that represent travel nurses, and those housing agencies would pay you directly. You negotiate with them and stuff like that. If you can find one and get in somehow, that's great. I have not been able to. I really haven't tried that hard. Like I haven't come across any nurses that are being represented by a travel agency, but I know people who have. So I'm going to show you guys Furnished Finder. I want to show you like my process and how it looks behind the scenes, but I want to make this distinction because I talked about Airbnb and how Airbnb facilitates everything, right? If you've ever used it, you know, you pay on the site, the host gets the money and stuff like that. It's all there. The one thing about Furnished Finder and Transplant Housing, and I spelled housing wrong. Sorry, just saw that. The difference there is it's really like a matchmaking service. There are no payments that are taken via these platforms. So they help you locate a travel nurse or help travel nurses locate you. There's a bunch of other features on the site that you can use, but there are no payments that go through that platform. They have to pay you off the platform. So that's a huge, difference there.
Hi everyone, Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.